Hello and welcome to this, our first spotlight session on day 2 of the International Airport Online Summit. I'm Luke Antonio, the editor of Intelligent Transport, the sister brand to your host today, International Airport Review. I'll be your moderator for this session, brought to you by John Keells, Information Technology. So during this session, we'll be looking at reimagining travel for the new normal and managing the aviation sector during unexpected environmental changes. And I'm sure that all of you would agree this is probably the most unexpected environmental change in living memory for many. Your presenter for this session is Ramesh Shanmuganathan, Director and CEO of John Keells Information Technology. A reminder for those of you watching to please get your questions in for Ramesh before the end of the session so that we can answer as many as we can. There are also a number of polls running throughout the session as well, so please do take a look, take the time to respond so that we can discuss what you guys in the audience think as well. For now though, over to you, Ramesh, for your presentation.
Thank you, Luke. Good morning, everyone. So in the next 25 minutes, I thought I'll probably touch base on Reimagine Travel, the new normal, and obviously an approach paper taking into consideration our experience and what we've done in aviation as well as in other industries. I thought it would be pertinent in the next 20 minutes to talk about two things. Air travel, why do we need to reimagine the future in today's context, and how would you remodel the new normal? In doing so, we obviously kind of take a consultative approach. We actually use a lot of techniques like design thinking, journey mapping, blue ocean strategy, a strategy canvas to bring this into fusion. So just to dig deeper in terms of reimagining the future, if you take the air travel in today's context, we are talking about almost 5 million passengers, 15,000 airports, 70 million flights, and 60 billion USD in terms of retail, in terms of duty-free shopping, which currently kind of defines the status quo of air travel. And obviously, COVID has taken a huge impact. I think it's about 50 to 60% impact in terms of what was before. And the whole challenge would be, how do you make air travel safer and for people to come back to the new normal in terms of it being a steady state future. So if we were to reimagine the future, obviously a lot of questions come to our mind, right? Who are the major stakeholders who would be as part of the future in air travel? And who would be the key personas or key actors in those? And what are their needs and aspirations? And what are the easy way of cracking that would be to look at the current passenger journey map in terms of air travel, and then remodel that journey map for the future. In doing so, we also look at how do you bring about data as the clear glue in terms of defining and orchestrating that whole journey, right? So when you look at data, then we obviously would see that today's context, we have a lot of siloed data which is not being used in enhancing the customer experience from a passenger point of view. So which would mean that we got to create an ecosystem, we got to look at collaborative mindset in co-creating the future. So this is just a snapshot of today's passenger journey, and I would appreciate, I think this is common knowledge, and I don't want to dig deeper in terms of detailing the journey map itself. It's quite self-explanatory. But one of the new actors that you would see post-COVID is health checks, right? And obviously, pre-travel, there are a lot of barriers, a lot of friction points for the passenger because they don't know what to expect, right? So I think in the new normal, one of the things that we would want to kind of manage is to bring in that variable in the passenger journey, and how do you really make it painless for the passenger in the air travel. So points of friction for the passenger in today's context, I think I would probably want to bucketize into four aspects. From a passenger point of view, if you take a passenger's ID, he has to kind of contend with multiple IDs, having to deal with multiple IDs. Right? For local authority, he might have to use his national ID or passport. Then, with respect to the airline, you will have a loyalty, baggage tags, boarding pass, and passports. So, is there a better way to universal identity and access management? Could it be biometric? Could that biometric have APIs into the other aspects of identity management that needs to get executed from an airline, airports, and the local authority point of view? Then, from a local authority point of view, obviously, health authority is a key stakeholder post-COVID, and formalities at airport. Today, 80% of the formalities take place in the airport. Is it necessary? Can that be means of facilitating self-checks, self-service kiosks and stuff in facilitating those? Then the formalities for the airline, same thing. Why do I have to come to the airport to do most of these things? Can I do it asynchronously in terms of when I find time before travel? Right. So, what would be the key objectives in remodeling it? So, I've also taken the approach of looking at the main four stakeholders: local authority, passenger, airline, and airports. So, from a local authority point of view, obviously they would want it to be integrated, right? Why do I have to kind of have a disconnected experience of treating a passenger in having four different views from a local authority, passenger, airports, and airlines? Can that be unified? And what is the mechanism of unification? It could be the single ID. So who manages the single ID? Then from a passenger point of view, he's expecting a safe, enjoyable, frictionless, contactless journey, and data-driven, personalized to him or her, right? So then from an airport point of view, you're looking at them having to deal with congestion, having to deal with issues, having to deal with smoother, efficient operation. So how do I enable an airport to deal with the post-pandemic situation, right? So obviously it needs to be seamless. It has to probably be autonomous. Same thing with the airline experience. If you look at the airlines, we want to make it safer. We want to make it autonomous, frictionless, personalized. So one thing which cuts across all these four areas would be data-driven, personalized, frictionless, self-service, autonomous. And you're seeing that emerging as a common theme, even if you take a design-centric approach. So how do you remodel the air travel of the future, right? So if you take the local authorities, obviously their expectations would be health records, history is available across borders. Is it possible? Now, if I'm in Sri Lanka and I'm traveling to London, can the authorities have access to my health records before I left Sri Lanka or during my stay in Sri Lanka? How do I facilitate seamless access of those records? How do I ensure all pre-travel formalities from a health authority point of view can be fulfilled by myself as a passenger? How do I identify and monitor track passengers and their contacts if a situation arises? How do I manage health records beyond my borders and within my borders? How do I know the history of the passenger? Where was he? Where did he travel? Who were his or her contacts? Right? And obviously do as much as possible contactless in ensuring that we create physical isolation. How do I give peace of mind to the passenger? Right. So today, I think we've seen a lot of noise in the media saying passengers kind of are probably at the receiving end because of post-COVID processes and procedures which have been enforced by multiple authorities. Right. So how do you make it easier on the passenger to manage all of these as well as facilitate his or her aspirations in terms of having to travel with a peace of mind, right? So you have to give anytime, anywhere access to all travel services, right? So that a passenger could do what he or she wants at their convenience. How do I ensure pre-travel activities to be performed at the pace that they want? Health clearance, baggage check-in, baggage drops, and other documentation which might be required. Contactless safe passage at the airport in terms of customs, immigration, boarding, those aspects. And can I facilitate a virtual mall? Do I have to go into physical store in duty free to shop? Can I have a virtual mall where I could pre-place the order and pick up my stuff at the airport? Can I manage my time spent at the airport from arrival to departure in the airport itself? How do I ensure that that becomes pretty smooth and efficient for me? And how can we offer more personalized services to the passenger from an airport point of view, from an airline point of view, from a local authority point of view? Time is of essence. So if I were to minimize the time a passenger spends in the airport, what do I need to do as an airport? Right? Obviously provide safe, easy passage to all passengers, ease congestion by minimizing pre-boarding activities to be done at the airport, provide contactless self-service formalities, right? Autonomous services could be more web-based, application-based services where a passenger could fulfill the obligation before arrival to the airport, including baggage drops could be at predefined places outside the airport, right? So if you make that seamless, you also facilitate for the airport to be efficient and airport to be minimally manned so that you avoid physical contact. Finally, at the airlines, right? Do I have a 360 view of the passenger in terms of beyond having the loyalty program and the passport? The question is, do I need to have physical stuff in the airline itself? Can I have a digital menu which is customized to the passenger? Can the customer pre-place the order before even boarding the flight? Can he have an entertainment where he could bring his own entertainment? He could customize his entertainment, and so that he doesn't have to have a physical engagement in the flight itself. Can he or she have a personalized bot assistant through the application where he could get his queries answered? Onboard shopping, can that onboard shopping happen through a virtual platform rather than having to be physically dealt with, right? Including other onboard formalities which can be automated. So the building the ecosystem of the new normal means that you need to facilitate certain aspects, and it has to be driven by the industry more than an individual player, right? Obviously, biometric-driven universal ID on blockchain would facilitate a universal ID across multiple stakeholders. The cloud-based applications in enabling the airports, airlines, and the local authorities where anytime, anywhere airlines. Obviously, this will mean we got to propel open APIs, right? So I know airline has been an industry which is quite regulated, and open data and open APIs is not been the best practice as opposed to other industries like banking. So having done a lot of stuff in the banking and the financial world, we feel that's something I think airlines and airports collectively have to do to create the new normal and facilitate the new normal. And how do we give personalized services? Again, it's about sharing data, sharing data and collaborating to create that value, right? Smart location-based services, be it the airport, be it the airline, be it local authority. How can we personalize services based on who or he is and where he or she is located at? And using AI to the optimum with IoT and smart tags as deemed necessary. So how do you really bring the ecosystem together, right? So bringing the ecosystems would society has. So we take on the engagement on a consulting assignment in terms of looking at a design thinking session where we understand the stakeholders' expectations, the current context, and how do you really then take it into a blue ocean strategy in terms of defining the levers which needs to get risen, which needs to get minimized, which needs to get managed better to drive a value outcome. And that's where we use the strategy canvas in driving the outcomes. Then it's about putting together an ecosystem of the platform, right? It could be based on platform that we have developed, could be our partners. So ultimately, what we are talking about is building the system of records, systems of intelligence, systems of engagement, and systems of innovation. So from an airline point of view, we got, as we've kind of spoken about, a suite of solutions called Evinta, which addresses the transact space. And then based on the customer requirement, we also build extensions on transform, engage, and innovate as required. And that is where I think we're also looking for collaborative partners where we could build the ecosystem for the new normal collaboratively, because we feel collaboration, co-creation, co-innovation is the way to go in creating the new normal. So this is the envisaged passenger journey map in the new normal, where you would see most of the thing is automated or robotic process automation, autonomous services, so that the passenger's journey, 70 to 80% is self-managed, right? And obviously this is a tall order if the constituents don't come together, right? If the constituents come together and if we can have a universal ID which drives this whole digitization process, this will be obviously a compelling proposition for the industry. And industry players have to come together to create this. And that is where we are keen to also work with the key players in terms of stakeholders and create a new normal. And we are happy to talk to anyone who wishes to collaborate with us on this. Just want to finish with a short video about John Kizzaiti so that you get a perspective of what we're trying to achieve. Thanks for your patient listening. With that, I am done with the presentation part. Over to you, Leo.
Ramesh, thank you very much indeed. Absolutely amazing to see the role that technology can have in responding to situations like these. So we do have some questions to get through, which is great. But before we do that, it'd be great just to take a look at the polls and get your thoughts on what we're seeing from the audience. So what I want to come to first is the poll about what technologies that people are planning to use in order to build this new ecosystem for the new normal. The most popular response here, with 29% of the vote, is artificial intelligence, closely followed by IoT and big data with 18% of the vote each. Are you surprised in any way by that result?
Nope, I think it's pretty much in line with what we've seen and what we anticipated. I would expect the AI to be a bit higher because I think today, if you're trying to drive autonomous systems, AI is going to play a huge role in that. and obviously data quality of data is also a critical factor in that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, blockchain there is at 14%, so that's only just below IoT and big data, which for me is reasonably surprising, seeing as it is currently, there's not a particular proof of concept or pilot out there that is, overly performing, I suppose, or public.
I think one of the reasons that we don't see blockchain in wider adoption is because of the way the airline industry has evolved. It's probably in terms of siloed systems, very proprietary systems for each of the airlines or airports, which don't talk to each other than GDS
It looks like we have lost Ramesh for the moment. Please bear with us while we try and reestablish a connection. Bear with me just one moment, please. Thanks for your patience. Unfortunately, we have lost Ramesh, and we will have to end the session there. It's a real shame. We have some fantastic questions, but for those of you who had a question that's gone unanswered, please do connect with Ramesh on the event platform and make sure that you look to connect with John Keells IT at their virtual exhibition stand as well. They'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you have. So yeah, please do utilize the platform, get your questions over to those guys directly to get their insight and see how they might be able to help. But thank you very much for joining us. Thanks to Ramesh. I'm so sorry that we lost him. But thank you very much for joining us. There is another session beginning in around 15-20 minutes time. So please do join us for our first.
Hi, sorry, I think there was a bit of a connectivity issue. I am back.
Oh, no worries. We were just about to wrap it up, but if you're back with us, then let's continue, because there is much more to discuss, obviously, and we still have a few minutes left, which is great. Okay, so we were just wrapping up there on blockchain, and what I wanted to come to next is, in terms of making investments in new technologies, the time frame for our audience and how they voted in the time frame for wanting to implement new tech. So far and away, the largest vote there is 44% within the next year. Do you think that the pandemic has pushed people and companies and airports more specifically to innovate quicker than they were previously planning to?
Definitely. I think it's jokingly said that COVID has been the new chief digital officer, and I think it's apt because I think the Uberization of the airline industry, aviation industry, was pending for a long time, and I think this has just put that whole thing on a fast track. And that's where I feel we got to go back to the drawing board in terms of relooking at air travel from a different lens to recreate the future, rather than doing this incremental thing from where we are today, because we will not reach there. I think that's why I would call it an Uberization of the air travel, because I think you've got to look at things from a different perspective and put the passenger at the center of the whole thing, and reimagine the future of travel for the passenger, and how airlines, airports, and local authorities could really create an ecosystem to give a better experience to the passenger end to end.
Yeah, for sure. And we've got just enough time as well to move on to a couple of questions as well. So, looking at what you've proposed in your presentation earlier on, what do you think the greatest challenge is going to be for the travel industry in achieving that? And what are your recommendations in being able to overcome those challenges?
Sure. I think a lot of the challenges would be in terms of the airline airports primarily working together and then getting the local authorities in. I think today you have a lot of these alliances like One World, Star Alliances, where a couple of the airlines are working together, and obviously that's a good start. But how do you kind of take it beyond those alliances in terms of sharing data, right? I think the stigma is all about data sitting in silos, and how do you unify the data to create the better experience. So the challenges, as I said, is beyond an individual stakeholder. It's a collection of stakeholders coming together, even as part of the Star Alliances or One World, could be a start. Creating a common loyalty program, a single view of customer within that, and can that be extended to the airport authorities, local authorities, so that you create that whole data as the new oil in terms of monetizing data to create better experience for the traveler.
Yeah, sure. I mean, talking about personalization, you know, there's obviously going to be some concerns about privacy as well. How do you propose that the industry deals with privacy issues
I think
relating to the sharing of
very
data?
relevant question. I would think because I think today GDPR is finding its way into most of the countries, and obviously that's the reason I felt blockchain would be a pretty good technology to give you that comfort, and also you could pseudonymize the KYC data so that you could have a coined pseudo ID for the passenger, which doesn't reveal much, but at least would say this is the same passenger. And that would serve the purpose for most of the analytics and personalization. And you could only reveal information for authenticated users on a need basis so that you still kind of manage the privacy related challenges. So that's why I feel blockchain would be a phenomenal technology to be used for that, and still manage the privacy issues and challenges which could arise.
Yeah, for sure. And another one here, another question from the audience around personal data protection. So, how would you propose coping with personal data protection, and how would it work within the framework of GDPR across the EU?
Yeah, I think that's what I just touched on, because ultimately I think the privacy issues are related in terms of KYC data. So you could actually create a pseudo ID using the KYC data with a pseudonymized data, right? So that you actually don't reveal the person, but you know that this is the same person that you're talking about, and that, as I said, that is good enough for most of the personalization that we are talking about. But when you go to an airport authority in terms of customs or immigration, obviously KYC data has to be revealed, and those authenticated users can have the KYC data, right? So GDPR could be managed in the way you could kind of even in blockchain manage which data is KYC, which is not, and what do you want to reveal with the customer consent for personalization. So obviously, customer would then approve. Okay, this data could be used for personalization, and I want to share this data with these stakeholders, and I don't want to, right? So at the point of data collection, obviously those needs to get managed in terms of process and a policy.
Do you think that personalization has kind of in the last 6 or 7 months gone from almost a nice to have for operators to something that's becoming much more essential in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic?
I would think so, because today, if you look at if I know, because today a lot of the airlines associate loyalty with the passenger, and that's the only kind of mechanism for them to collect data and personalize. But today, I don't think health data or anything in terms of beyond the realms of the airline or airports, you have the data or you correlate that data. So the importance is, how do you really, if you want to do personalization and put the passenger at the center of air travel, do we have enough data points to kind of connect the dots, right? Like I would probably kind of recall what Steve Jobs said, you can always look back and connect the dots, but looking forward and connecting the dots is very difficult. And that's where AI is very relevant. And if you have quality data points across the ecosystem would definitely help, rather than having it in terms of the past.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, unfortunately, that brings us to a close for this session. We are just out of time. But Ramesh, thank you very much for your time. And thanks for coming back on as well. I'm sorry we lost you briefly, but it's good to get you back.
Yeah.
Hope you thanks enjoy. As well, obviously. Yeah. Thanks to everybody online for watching. And I know that we have some unanswered questions still from the audience. So as I was saying earlier on, please do connect with Ramesh and have a look at the John Keells IT exhibition stand too. We'll get any unanswered questions answered as quickly as we can. It's almost time now for our first webinar session of the day as well. So for the audience, please do stay tuned for that as we look at how airports can use data more effectively in just about 10 minutes time. So we'll see you shortly for that. But goodbye for now and thank you very much.
Thank you. Take care. Have a pleasant day.
You too. Thanks.